Welcome to Going the Distance with Go Long. I am Jill Consor Beck, founder of Go Long. Go Long is a texting service for accountability. I do accountability coaching via texting, and there's all sorts of topics that people want accountability for. Some people want it for getting in shape and building muscle. Some people want to lock in their diet. Some people are trying to build a side hustle and they need to carve out some time for that. Some people have like procrastinated big life things that they need to work on, like estate planning or working on financial planning, all the things. And so Go Long texts you every day to kind of keep you on track so that you can make nudges little by little on a daily basis. I am so excited for this discussion today. I am here with Debra Duby. I call her Deb, and she is a strength training coach extraordinaire. She does a lot of things through her program, which she's going to talk about. But I love the fact that she's very common sense, very practical, and very empathetic. And we're also going to get into the fact that she's a mom of a very competitive athlete who happens to be a teenager and what that's like in terms of some of the body image issues and everything else and the importance of strength training with that. So, Deb, so happy you're here. How did you get here? How did you get into this?
Thanks so much for having me, Jill. I'm so happy to be here. Um, my story is kind of funny because I was in a totally different career first. I was a tech recruiter. I graduated from UConn. I had a psychology degree. I thought I would really like to be a therapist, but I'm 21-ish years old. I don't know enough about anything, is how I felt. So let me get out there, get some life experience. I want to work in New York City. I want to be in the real world. So I worked as a tech recruiter for 5 years. Suffice it to say, I really did not enjoy it, and I knew within a few years that, "Ugh, this is probably not gonna be my long-term career. I don't know what I will do next, but I'll be here in the meantime." Lo and behold, I just kind of had one of those moments like a lot of people have and have had. Mine was right after 9/11, which was a pivotal moment for many people where and I lived in New York City at the time, and it just was one of those one of those catalyst moments where you can't help but reevaluate what you're doing and who you are and where you are. And right shortly after that time, I left the field. I was in a little bit of a black hole there trying to figure out what to do. And it was really cheering on from my family members, notably my brother in law, who said, you love people and fitness and health and exercise. Maybe you should be a trainer. And I have to just tell you, I thought that was ridiculous. I said, I really don't know any trainers that I want to aspire to be. And, I don't think that that's really going to be a field that I can grow in. Knew a lot of trainers and gyms, and I just thought, I don't know. I don't think that that's really going to fill me up in the way that I'm looking to be filled up next. And yes, I do want to be a therapist, but I'm still really young. I was in my 20s. Um, but I didn't have any other ideas. So I went for it and here I am. I'm 50 years old now. I started this career when I was 27 and I love it. And I've been in love with this field since. I also have certifications in nutrition and I recently did a 2-year meditation teacher training program. So I've added to it over the years. But who would have thunk? So here I am at 50, and I like it as much, if not more, than I did when I started.
There's so many things to unpack there. So, like you, I was there on 9/11. I saw the second plane hit. And a lot of what happened with 9/11 is kind of a catalyst for me being out here in Seattle, right? So that's something I can completely relate to you on that in terms of like how it like really shakes you to your core, that kind of experience. But I feel like you had a little bit of imposter syndrome in there that you were talking about. And then the other thing that I actually think was fascinating is that when you talked about how when your brother-in-law said you should be like a trainer, and you're like, there's no trainers that like I like really looked up to. And I think that the catalyst for why I started Go Long. Because originally, Go Long was about finding people, women 40 plus, coaches that listen to them and align to them, because most of the trainers in your average gym are 25-year-old white guys. And 25-year-old white guys can't relate to women, let alone women as they get older, right? So, in thinking about you telling your story, that makes sense because you're like, these are all guys and like they've never made the gym like a hospitable place for me. So why would I ever fit in there as a colleague? Being in there, which is no different than like, being in investment banking, which is where I started. Although there were probably more women there than as strength training coaches, and then in tech. So there's a lot of parallels in terms of the story. Like that was my takeaway from your bio.
And you make a good point. I don't even know if I was conscious of all of that. But to your point, my brother-in-law said, "Well, why don't you become the person that you are looking for?" Right? And it was just sort of like, you know, huh. I got, lucky and I networked as we do when we're interested in something that we love. And I ended up landing at a facility that was it was 50% physical therapy and 50% personal training. I'm still in touch with all of the people there, or most of the people there, and certainly the owners. And that really is what got me here, because that's where I learned, oh, you can be part of a process where you're getting someone from hurt, injured, afraid, um, totally back to fit, playing their sport, living their life as fully as possible. And then I was sold.
Right. So it aligned to like what your values were and what made sense to you and what spoke to you. So
Yes.
now, let's fast forward a bit because you were doing in-person work in New York and then COVID hit. So how does an in-person trainer function during COVID?
Jill, the first thing that my husband will tell you too is I got into fetal position, and I stayed there for multiple days. I think longer. Evan says multiple days, and panicked because
Right.
every gym closed.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, I too was afraid to even be outside among people.
There was a lot of information out there that it was hard to make sense of what was what.
Correct. I also my mom, who has passed away since, was paralyzed, and my father was in his 80s, and I we left New York to be with them because I was terrified that how would they survive this? So, we left New York, everything shut down anyway, school, work for both my husband and myself, and I panicked. And I had no ideas. I was just like, I guess I'll try to be a barista at Starbucks at some point when they reopen, and maybe I'll get health benefits. I mean, it really was just trying to think of anything else. And it was my husband who said, there's something called Zoom. I had never heard of Zoom. I had never used Zoom. He said, Stop. We're going to get a ring light." I didn't even know what a ring light is. "We're going to get you a tripod." I knew what that was. "And we're going to get a Zoom account, and you are going to work with your clients on Zoom." And I have to tell you, I thought, "You're crazy. That's not going to work. How am I possibly going to make that happen like this?" I've always been in person. I'm such a hands-on being, and there's such an energy transfer as a
Yes.
trainer, such a strong energy transfer. But my husband was like, "You don't have a choice.
Yeah, I
Pivot,
mean,
pivot."
yeah, you gotta it's like this is the situation and it sucks.
He's great at that. My husband sees around corners. I do not. Thank God for him, because I would have been pummeled many times. But he pushed me to pivot, and I it was hard. My clients at first were resistant for several reasons. One, they thought, "Oh, we'll go get this will just be a couple weeks, right? This is a blip." Right? So there was that. Wrong, right? And also, I think they too were like, how's that gonna work?" And then, quickly within a month, we realized, oh God, we don't even know how long this is going to go on for. And so it began. I started teaching classes. I started working with my clients one on one. I gave them like a price break because I thought, like, let me just, I'll give you 30% more of the sessions that you originally bought. And if you hate it, I'll refund you. And slowly but surely, everyone came back. And then the magic of all of this, Jill, is that after people were vaccinated or not vaccinated, but when gyms reopened and the world was starting to get back to normal in New York, that took some time. People did not want to go back to in person training. And that was another piece of the puzzle I would have never predicted. I thought, well, let's go back, let's go back, let's go back. And people said, well, but why? It's easier for me. I'm home I'm at this place or when I'm traveling or wherever. It's just easier for me. And the other gift was that people started to learn how to train independent of me. And what I mean by that is I was creating dependency unconsciously, meaning my clients would come to me, and as part of the service, I would set up their dumbbells, their barbells, whatever exercise, right? They didn't lift a finger. I brought everything over. And then I took it from them and I taught, they had no idea how to do it. And that was something I realized on Zoom. I was like, why do you look like you're deer in the headlights? I don't know how to set up my barbell. What? Like, "What do
Yeah.
you mean?" They said, "Well, I only do those exercises when I'm with you." And I was like, "Oh." So, here we are. Even my 80-year-olds are setting up all their own stuff, their barbells, their dumbbells, their benches. So, what it cultivated was even more independence and more confidence on their end. And I love that because I never wanted to be a trainer that was making people dependent on me, but I was, even in an effort not to. I had such a blast.
Right. You were trying to help them, but the other thing that is good about this now is that when they go on vacation and they go to a gym in a hotel, or they go drop in at a gym locally, they
Yeah,
know what to do. They don't need they just get the workout from you, and they can go do the workout independently because, I mean, that's what I mean, I started my weight training, at CrossFit, so we had to set up our own stuff, but, with my trainer now, who the coach that I work with now, it's just like she sends the stuff and there's videos in the app, and then I go and do,
right.
and everything, and I don't need her
Yes, to be watching.
to be yeah, I mean, if there's something I want her to look at my technique for, I'll video that
Right.
and upload that to the app, but I don't need her in that sense.
Yes. And I love that, and that ultimately, I think, is the definition of an excellent trainer, is that you're onboarding people, but you're
Right.
not making them lifers. Now, fine print, there are some people who are like, "I wanna be a lifer."
Yeah.
And that's a different story, but as much as I possibly can, I think it's our job to make ourselves as obsolete as possible, that we're teaching people how to be independent and how to be confident on their own, so that, like you said, no matter where they are, there isn't a gap. They
Yeah,
can
you're trying to build systems, and I mean, and that's what I talk about with my clients is that we're trying to build systems, so we solve one problem for you. You probably have something else now that you wanna tackle now that you've solved problem A. You probably wanna go work on problem B.
Yeah,
And a lot of, we were talking about before the call was around table setters that I do, that I call with my clients. And table setters are those things that put you in a position to be successful. And they're very simple things, like getting your gym bag ready the night before so that you don't have to think. So your water bottle's there, your AirPods are in there, your sneakers are in there. If, you're coming from work, whatever that is, like, And those texts that I send to my clients, those come in at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night the night before to be like, hey, Deb, you got your workout bag ready to go, alarm set. So that this way, when you're up at 5:30 in the morning and you're like a zombie, you're not thinking, you're just doing. And so it's like once that habit is set, then it's like, okay, let's go work on something else. And so those table setters are very simple things. Like for work, for example, some people need a clean desk. Like for them, visually, the clutter, they can't do it. So for some clients, the text is, have you cleared your desk off at the end of the day so that when you come in the next morning, you're ready to rock and roll and do what you need to do? So I'm all for the simplicity of like putting people in a position to be successful. All right, we have a bunch of questions. Um,
Awesome.
I I solicited my clients about questions for Deb, and we have a bunch. And the most popular topic was around fitting it in, right? Fitting in your workouts when you're a person in the sandwich generation. So you're parenting kids, you're taking care of your parents, which you just described that yourself. You're trying to run a business, you're a parent of a daughter, you're running the household, like all the things. You're thinking about your own health on top of it. And obviously, you were going through some mental health in terms of like stress about your business and everything else. So it's all happening at once. So if you're one of those people who fitness is not like hardwired into you, but you know you need to do it, is a 15-minute routine gonna like help? Because I think that a lot of people feel like, oh, 15 minutes, eh, that's probably not gonna make a difference. So what do you focus on when you're talking to a client who's coming to you and like, I don't have any time right now. And like maybe I'll get a 15-minute break or something like that. Walk me through how you approach that with people.
This is so many people.
Yeah.
So, not the first time I've heard that. And I want to assure whoever asked that question, whomever out there is
Well,
thinking,
a
"What?"
lot of people ask this
Right?
question.
Yes, 15 minutes can work. So, from a effectiveness perspective, it's sort of like, well, what's your goal? So when we say, will it work? For what? Are you looking to just check the I want to do what's healthy for me box? Great. Yes, that can work. Are you trying to dramatically change your body composition? Different conversation. Right? So it really my answer is going to really depend on my next question to that client, which is what do you want the outcome to be? If they're saying, I know that strength training is supposed to be healthy for me, I'm not even sure why, and I just want to make sure I do some, is 15 minutes enough? I would say if you could do that twice a week, it will be enough to bump your health up a little bit. And let's make that a first goal is twice a week, 15 minutes for a month or so and see how you feel. And if you're vibing with it, maybe you will find the time, create the time for a little bit more for a different result. Um, I think the other piece of that is what are you doing in those 15 minutes? So
Yeah, I think
if
I
you're
was gonna get to that one too, because you wanna make sure that you're, like, doing the appropriate warm up and everything else.
Yes. So I'm assuming, tell me if I'm right. I'm assuming that whomever or the people who ask this question are looking to check the box of I'm doing something good for my health without
Yeah, they're like, all they're hearing about is bone density, osteoporosis,
okay.
like, they're all hearing that, and, you're seeing it all over your social media feeds.
100%. I want to be clear, it's probably the minimum, but the minimum is better than 0, right? So, we're always happy to do something over nothing. I talk a lot about that in my program. Something will always trump nothing. So, if something is the choice, something it is. And so, yes, it will do something. Something will do something. Nothing will do nothing. So, you want to work on big muscle groups so that you get the biggest return on investment. What do I mean by the biggest muscle groups? Your legs. So some people will say core. I hear why you would say that. You really want it. Butt cheeks, your glutes are your largest muscle, period. And they're the strongest muscles. So everything from the hips down, I would say leg exercises, and I'll name a few if you'd like. back exercises, possibly chest exercises. And that's what I would say to do in those 15 minutes. Don't worry about your biceps. Don't worry about your triceps. Don't worry about your shoulders. Now, women will always say, but I look at you, you're, who's moving the weight to do a back exercise and to do a chest exercise? Your arms. So your arms are getting their workout, even if you skip them directly. You're getting them indirectly by doing back work and chest work. And even you could argue some leg work, especially if you're holding two heavy dumbbells, your shoulders are working very hard to do that, and your grip strength and all of the muscles in your forearms. So you can really do one or two leg exercises, one or two back exercises, maybe one or two chest exercises in a circuit. I would do like legs, back, maybe chest. So, for example, a squat, a row, a push up, rest. Pick a rep range to do. Maybe it's AMRAP, as many reps as possible because you only have 15 minutes. That'll
You know
work.
what's it I had, a coach, a weightlifting coach, and she always said, like, every exercise is a core exercise, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is that every person is like, "I wanna spot train, so I wanna spot train my arms, or I wanna spot train my abs because I want this or that," which I think obviously is one of the biggest myths out there that you could spot train. You can't. But
Sure.
she always said every exercise is a core exercise if you're doing it properly. And
That's
so
right.
I think that that kind of aligns to what you're saying, where it's like, look, if you're doing a squat, but like you're really thinking about how you're engaging your core and you're keeping like your head and neck angle in the proper position, you're going to actually engage your core and work that while
Yes.
still doing the squat. So I think that that's good. So if I'm going to sum up your answer, it's like, look, something is better than nothing. 15 minutes is okay. You want to think about the lower body if possible, because lower body sets the stage for everything above, right? And then if you get more into it, you may figure out a way to build in the time. But if you're really pressed,
Yes. And I would say legs are the most important because that's how you're getting around.
right.
And then second to that, in my opinion, would be back
Hmm.
because posture and all the muscles around the spine really important. And then chest if you can. Everything else is gravy.
So, you said you're a woman of a certain age, as am I. So there's the brain fog. And sometimes, the brain fog definitely, fucks with your brain chemistry and everything else. So when the neurons aren't firing to get to the gym and to move, how do you work with clients? Because I'm sure you work with clients who are in perimenopause and dealing with the brain fog. Is there a method that you would recommend to kind of just be like, hey, I'm not, it's more than I'm not feeling. It's like literally my brain is just like not all there.
Are you tell I wanna just clarify this question. Do you mean like, uh, what are tricks to get people to go to the gym, or what are tricks to just get people moving even if they're not gonna go to the gym?
I would say let's focus on the latter because I think that if you get people moving, then that might then motivate them to get to the gym later. But if you're trying to get people to the gym, that may skip that opportunity to get them moving, which goes back to something is better than nothing.
Absolutely. Yes. So, I think something that we call daily activity is a great foundation so that when you have those days where you have to fall back, you have something to fall back onto. For example, examples of daily activity can be walking, can be yoga, can be gardening, can be a bike ride, a swim. It can be any movement, a dancing that people enjoy that doesn't feel like a tremendous amount of exertion and energy is required. So we always have this fallback position of daily activity. So at the
Right.
very least, we are doing something, even if it's a 10-minute walk or a 5-minute walk versus zero. The most important muscle we can build is the consistency or the habit muscle. You can't build any other muscles if that has not been formed first. So even 5 minutes checks that box. And sometimes that's the most important.
I literally there's, a few clients of mine who struggle with some brain chemistry issues, and when they're just not there, I'm like, "Get outside for a walk." Even in Seattle where it's, like, very gray certain times of the year, I'm like, "Just get outside. Just get some fresh air, go for a walk for 10, 15 minutes, and then tell me how you feel after." And 99% of the time, they're like, "I feel better." Like, yeah, they're not gonna go to the gym, but they feel better that they've done something and their mood actually has improved.
And there's science behind that. Your mood and your muscles are correlated. And moving your muscles changes your mood. That's not just a fun saying, it's real. There's science behind that. There are hormones and messengers and molecules that muscles send out called myokines, and
Mhm.
they literally affect your brain chemistry. In addition to more oxygen to your brain, in addition to all of these interesting studies about eye movement and panoramic views and all of these other inputs and sunlight that change your brain chemistry as well. So, yes, for sure, getting outside is amazing. But any movement, any way that you can contract your muscles does directly change your brain chemistry.
Great. So, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about, there are some, people who chimed in and they're runners, right?
Mhm.
And they love their running. As
Yeah.
one of them said, "You are gonna pry running out of, like, my cold, dead hands." But there's obviously the importance of strength training, but it's like a lot of times people feel like they're told, like, "Cardio's bad, you gotta pick one." And there's obviously, like, you know, these are like religious arguments some of the time.
Yes.
What do you say to people who are trying to, running is their primary sport and that's what they love doing, like
Mhm.
it,
Great.
but they know they need to do strength training. Like, how do you
Yes.
balance that?
It is a religious, it has become a religious argument, unfortunately, or a political argument, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
All exercise is great. But strength training is not running, and running is not strength training, and yoga is not running or strength training, and Pilates, right? So to argue about what's better, I think is ridiculous. It's futile. It's more about let's just all be friends. Why can't we all be friends? I interviewed somebody yesterday who was a pretty intense runner, and she said, when I started to strength train, I became a better runner, and I train many runners. And that, I think, gets exciting for them because they realize, oh, these are compliments. They're not antagonists. Like, one complements the other. The more cardiovascular health you have, the better experience you'll have strength training and vice versa. So they're just different beasts and they work together. They work synergistically. So there's nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to give up one for the other. You can absolutely have your cake and eat it too. What's different about strength training that you can't get from running to the same degree, and some would argue at all, but I would just say to the same degree, is running will take you up to a certain point as far as bone density and muscle hypertrophy. We're only losing muscle after age 30. Some will say earlier. You can't build muscle from running to a degree that would combat the loss from aging. And you can't build bone just from running to the degree that you will lose it due to aging. Will there be exceptions on the bell curve? Absolutely. But for the most part, you need the the type of resistance that only strength training can bring to offset what happens to everyone in the aging process regarding muscle loss and bone loss.
So what would you recommend? Say someone who runs like five days a week, like that's their thing that they do every, most days, if not every day, to kind of just for their mental health. How would you say think about them in terms of like there's lower body work, but I would also argue for strength training, you do have upper body work because of your posture and your shoulders and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily sleep. I wouldn't sleep on just lower bodies on the upper body stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, funny story, I had a pretty high level cyclist who came in for a consultation, and I do all kinds of testing, and I did some body comp work. And I know this is going to sound funny maybe to hear, but his leg pinch, which is we do like body composition in all
Mhm.
different spots,
Yeah.
was high. And
Mhm.
he thought, meaning he had quite a bit of body fat on his lower body and not a tremendous amount of muscle as a cyclist.
Right.
So people think like, oh, I could just delete that because I'm already getting it from my bike or I'm already getting legs from running. Not really, because that's endurance.
Right.
And it's not really in the strength box. There's some Venn diagram, there's a little bit of overlap, but it's not the same. So for someone who loves their cardio, what I suggest is just complement it with what we know, at least at the moment, to be true from a science perspective, which is 2 times a week hitting the big muscle groups for the minimum that they could do. I would say if it's only 15 minutes, I'll take it. If they could bump it up to 30 minutes, that would be better.
Okay. All right. That's fair. And I think that 2 days a week, 30 minutes a pop for this person who asked this question in particular, but I know I have other clients with this. If you
And
want
I
to
can
keep
be more
running,
specific as far
yeah,
as bone density
yeah,
and muscle development and how many sets and things like
mhm,
that. But if we're just looking for broad strokes, that's what I would suggest.
okay. All right, cool. If you're an early morning workout person, right? Like, so if I'm lifting, it's generally at 6 a.m. and I'm not eating before that. Like, I'm rolling out of bed and I'm just like, all right, I'm starting my warm up and blah, 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 blah. So, how do you like kind of coach clients in terms of like fueling before workouts and everything? And then specifically for the person who works out first thing in the morning, or even if they can only do it later in the evening, they're not going to be able to eat right after, like a full
Mhm.
meal. Walk me through how you kind of approach that with clients.
So it, this is an interesting take, but as we age, fueling becomes more and more important. And if we're professional athletes, fueling becomes more and more important. When we're younger, it's probably not that important. We have a lot of storage, muscle mass stays on our body. It's not a big fist fight. Once we get past 30 and certainly past 50, fueling becomes important again because we're really trying to preserve muscle mass. And if we're not thinking about that, we better be thinking about that. And we could talk more about that too, why this conversation is so important, which I don't know that everybody knows. So when we're talking about preserving muscle mass, it depends. There are different experts now, especially saying two different things. Some experts like Stacy Sims, Dr. Stacy Sims, who people might know, who's really a pioneer on women's health and in fitness, feels very strongly that fasted training is not healthy for women in perimenopause and menopause because we're breaking down our muscle tissue. And we've already fasted overnight. We shouldn't continue to fast. There are other people that I respect in the industry that have called her bluff. They're saying their research is not showing that. So because it's not necessarily clear, I try to say, hey, if you cannot eat before or it makes you nauseous to eat before, make sure that you eat immediately after. Do not continue to fast until noon or 1. But if you can, even eat a little bit of something, it's just protective. We believe that it's protective for muscle mass. And if you're a person who has about high body fat percentage, is very, very thin and doesn't have a lot of muscle mass, you'd probably benefit from fueling before, if possible, and worst case scenario, right after.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's another whole that's an, I mean, there's so many holy wars going on
Yes.
on fitness and nutrition for women over 40. It's kind of we could just do a show just on that alone. So, what are your thoughts on full body workouts versus having workouts that are specific days for specific parts, like leg day, arm day, like,
Yeah,
and obviously I'm like overgeneralizing.
totally.
Upsides and downsides, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Full body workouts work for most people if they're doing 2 days a week, sometimes three. 2 to 3 days a week of full body works for a lot of athletes because they don't get very sore and they can continue to play their sport. And an athlete can be any age, by the way, right? I'm not just talking about like teen athletes or collegiate athletes. I mean, you could be an athlete in your 80 because split body might create too much soreness in the tissues to be able to keep playing your sport. On the other hand, there are people that find that they're not building enough strength and mass with full body training, or they just like to go to the gym. They feel better, like your runner who likes to go every day, 5 miles a day. There are people that get that same brain boost from the gym, and doing a full body workout 5 days a week, I would not recommend. So, full body workouts should do the trick. The sort of rule of thumb for muscle hypertrophy, which again just means growth. We could talk about what that means. I always tell people I've been training for 32 years. I've gotten so giant. I'm still a very small person, so I'm being sarcastic. But because we're losing so quickly as we age, we do want to do hypertrophy training if we can. And the rule of thumb is that you hit a muscle group at least you do at least 10 sets per muscle group per week. So you can do that in a variety of different ways, whether you split it up or do it all at once for full body. I personally do 2 lower body days and 2 upper body days, but I have clients that even like to split it up further. If we're our age and we're not professional athletes, I think split body can again work really well if you feel I'm not building enough muscle, either visibly, like it can be completely sort of like vanity based, or it can be like I feel weak and I need to put more effort into my leg strength because you know what, Deb? I went on vacation and I tried to do this hike and it was exhausting. So some people just want more strength in one area and they can't get enough sets in their 30-minute full body workout. So then we'll split it up.
No, I think that's a great way of looking at it because one of the things, of course, my initial concept of go long was the fact that it was like, well, how do you want to age gracefully? Like, do you want to be able to go and walk around Rome, right? Because everybody wants to go to Rome. Everyone wants to go to Italy when they retire. They want to be able to travel around Italy. And what I used to say in my pitch is that, like, do you feel like you have the stamina and the strength to walk around Rome all day, every day for multiple days? Because you're not just doing one day in Rome, right? And
Absolutely.
Rome, you know, there's no ADA. Rome is not ADA friendly, right? There's
Right.
cobblestone streets, everything's
That's
uneven,
right.
there's lots of stairs. And so if you are that person who is looking to travel more as you get older, and I'm not talking about hiking, which is what my husband and I like to do. I'm talking about just like walking through cities. Paris, London, Rome, wherever. You need leg strength and you need endurance to do that kind of activity for multiple days and not feeling like you got the shit kicked out of you so that you can't enjoy
That's right.
seeing
So
these,
the
like,
Absolutely, and to your point, it's individual. Like, there are people that full body works great, and that's what they stick with. And there are other people that want more muscular development, more strength, and therefore, split body can be better because, again, it depends on the person, it depends on their goals, it depends on, what they want the outcome to be. So, I have clients that have done full body forever, and they feel frustrated now. They're 50, they're 60, they're like, this what is why am I this is like squishy. I used to be, and they just might need more attention on certain muscles. And you can't necessarily get that from a full body workout, which
right,
okay, doesn't mean that's bad. It's just what do you want the outcome to be?
right. All right. So that leads to this next question around, like, so let's say you're using an app or, whatever it is. How often should you change up your workout routine? Is it like every 3 months, 6 months? Is it more about when the weights are too easy?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I change up my clients' workouts every 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks. And the reason why I do that, and it can't, by the way, to fully answer your question, that can go on longer. I find that my clients are sick of it by the fourth, fifth, or sixth week. They're sick of they're bored. They want
Right.
something fresh. And that is enough time to get enough progressive overload to then change. Again, there's going to be disagreement. I'm sure there are other coaches out there that would say I would definitely go at least 8 weeks, at least 12 weeks. But in my experience, and again, I haven't been doing this, it's 23 years, which is a long time, but not forever. So,
It's a
it's
pretty long
doubtful.
time. I'm gonna call bullshit on that.
Thank
That's a
you.
pretty long time.
But I do feel that 4 to 6 weeks is enough time. And if you'd like to keep your training programs longer, you can. I wouldn't keep a training program for months and months and months. I think you start to you're not paying attention. It's so many factors. You're not paying attention anymore. You're going on autopilot. Um, you're grinding in the same gear, basically. So it's also just better for joints and muscles to have different angles, different stressors. So it's not all the same all the time. So I just think for longevity, change is also really helpful in addition to boredom, in addition to muscle development, in addition to just overall health.
So when you're thinking about that, a follow-up question on that is that, first of all, I think it would be good for you to define what progressive overload means.
Mhm.
So,
Great.
can you define that?
Yeah, I can. So, progressive overload is basically the idea that over time, and I always say that because I don't mean session to session, over time, could be a week, could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be four, you are getting stronger and the workouts and or training is becoming more challenging. What happens is we're going to adapt. And so if we're not consistently progressing our training and having that in the back of our mind, we're going to kind of be running in the same circle in the same way forever, expecting a different result, like the definition of insanity. So, one example I give, because this everyone can relate to, if I wanted to run the New York City Marathon and I said, I'm just going to run around this room as my training, everyone would be like, what? No, that's crazy. You can't just run around your room. But that's what people do with strength training. They'll be in the same circuit like at the gym, there's like a circuit of machines and
Yeah.
they've done
I
that
know
for 20
yeah, the
years.
visual.
Like that's not gonna work anymore. Your body already knows how to do that. So the challenge, for example, I'll be more specific. It may mean that you're using a heavier weight for the same exercise. It may mean that you're not able to move a heavier weight, but you're able to increase your repetitions. It may mean that like, let's use squats, for example. First, you did a body weight squat or a TRX squat. Then now you're able to do a body weight squat. Now you're able to use dumbbells, and in 6 months, you're able to use the barbell. Now, let's say you're at a point where you have 250 pounds on your back, right? And you're like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get much heavier than this anytime soon. Now what? Well, now we can work on deeper squats. We can work on increasing by 1 rep every couple of weeks. So maybe you could do 5. In 2 weeks, you can do 6 reps. In 4 weeks, you can do 7. I'm doing the
Or you can
wrong
do
number.
tempo.
You
You can
can
do
do
tempo.
tempo, slow down the way down, pause at the bottom, and then come up with power. So there are many ways to define progressive overload. It can be reps, it can be sets, it can be weight, it can be advancing the exercise, like the squat example, it can be tempo. Lots of ways, but the point is that you're making it harder over time.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about with my clients is, like, tempo, I think, is really good because you could do that with a soup can. You can make someone who's just starting out, right? You can get a good squat progression with a soup can, right? And a chair. Like, just squat to the chair, hold the soup can, and do that first, and then, like, increase. So, when we're talking about tempo, we're talking about how long it takes for you to go down
That's
on the
right.
squat. And so It's easy to go down and then up because you're using, you're just going with gravity. But when you're fighting gravity
That's
on the
right.
way down, then you're engaging a lot more of those neurons and muscle patterns, right? And
100%.
you will feel it if you take 3 seconds to go down and then, as you said, jump back up, right? You will feel that the next day, even with a soup can.
Absolutely. So, really, I think that's the mindset that is missing for a lot of well meaning people that are. I strength train, but they've been using the same exercises, same weights. When someone tells me, oh, I strength train at home, and I'll say, oh, do you have a gym? No, but I have eights, tens, 12s, and bands. How long have you been using those for? 5 years. You're not strength training. And I know that people will be like, what do you mean? Of course, I'm making a generalization, but most people, they have hit a ceiling and didn't know it
Right.
because they're in a little, cage of 3 or 4 different tools. And so it's really neat to watch those people move out of that, sometimes to a gym, if they're able, and it's a whole new world.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've already covered this in this little exchange here, but another question that came in, another holy war question is like reps versus increasing weight. And I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. Before we move on, is there anything else you want to add on the whole reps versus increasing weight debate?
I think when I initially talk about progressive overload, the only way most people know how to define that is increasing the weight. And I love to say, guess what? That's one of 15 to 20 different ways that you can define progressive overload. And everyone gets to a ceiling. I think the heaviest dumbbell I've ever physically seen is 120 pounds. They don't make a 500-pound dumbbell, they don't make a 200-pound, or at least I've never seen one. Right? So everyone caps.
Right.
Everyone has a ceiling. There is no, the barbell only fits so much. So there is a limit to every human being. And so we have to know that, yes, in the first year of training, that might be your go to because it's amazing the first year. You're just getting stronger and stronger, and it feels like you'll never reaches the ceiling. But guess what? You will. And you have to know what the other levers are to pull so that you don't fall backwards and that you can continue to utilize progressive overload so that you build muscle and bone forever.
All right. So now I want to kind of talk about, um, and you kind of alluded to this earlier. Why does strength training matter as we get older? So in addition to that, um, question came in from a client. Just got diagnosed with osteopenia. I'm in my mid to late 50s and I'm trying to figure out what are my most meaningful changes to make. And then the follow-up question she had was, as you age into each decade, what are the priorities of training? So let's maybe start with your 30s, right?
So good. I
I
mean,
have very I have very I have great clients. They ask really good questions and keep me
such
on my
good
toes.
questions. I do want to just start by reassuring, in case this person needed this, reassuring him or her that even if you have osteoporosis, and I know this person has osteopenia, you can still strength train safely. And
Yeah.
that there have been so many studies where they did crazy exercises, like exercises that you would really raise eyebrows in watching, and people did not break their bones. So you can do many, in fact, most strength training exercises without fear of breaking bones. That being said, um, in as far as the decades, in my opinion, after age 30, everyone should be engaging in some sort of hypertrophy training, and that is building muscle because again, we're only losing after age 30. The peak bone and muscle mass, and again, it's argued, but we can just round up and say by 30. But there are some people that say by 20, by
Yeah.
25, right? So somewhere between 20 and 30, that's it. So I want to even back up to say there's this new phrase osteoporosis is a disease that begins in childhood. True. So we really want to back up before 30 and say Get your kids strength training and exercising as much as they're willing, starting as a teen and continuing, because this is the most fertile ground, is teenage to 30. After 30, we can still build. So I don't want to sound like it's over. We can still build bone and muscle, but our peak is over. So we're just fighting to stay as close to that peak as possible. So hypertrophy training for everyone, and it becomes more and more important with every decade. 30 to 40, some hypertrophy, and anything else you want to do, more conditioning, you want to do more cardio, I think you have a little bit more leeway, but I think post 40, definitely post 50 and past, I really like the focus to stay on building and keeping as much muscle as possible. And if they can do some jump training to stimulate bone health and
Yeah.
development as well. So if you can start that earlier and keep it going even later. And if you can continue to do jump training, jump rope, hopscotch, trampoline, is supposed to be a decent, although again, there are people that debate that. It would be great. Any plyometrics would be great. As far as food, I think protein is very important, especially as we age, because again, according to researchers, not me, we don't assimilate protein as well as we did when we were younger. So we actually need more
Right.
than we did. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, you need even more. So making sure that you're getting 30 to 50 grams, depends on your weight, of protein at each meal, really important as you age, especially post 50.
Okay. So we've talked about the protein. We've talked about, the continual like emphasis on strength training as you get older. So now, if you're a newbie and, you just got a diagnosis and you're just like, well, fuck, I don't know the first thing about like strength training or going into a gym and I don't want to get hurt. I don't even know where to start. Maybe this person can't go to a gym because where they live, it's too far for them to go and they're trying to make this habit. So they have like a whole bunch of constraints. So, what advice do you have for someone who is just, they're like, okay, I got to do this. I have no idea where to start and I'm completely overwhelmed.
Hire a trainer.
But how do you find a good trainer though? That's the thing, right? Like, cause there's
Here's
a
my
lot.
advice. There are ways. Um, I personally advise my clients to, if they have a connection with a physical therapist or an orthopedist, those are typically people who know good trainers.
Yeah.
It's not exclusive, but that is a club of people that do know the difference. Unfortunately, and this is a terrible thing to say, but it's just true about my industry, you can get your certification out of a Cracker Jack box. You don't need a degree. You can study online. No one could ever know that you're a real person, and you can pass an online exam now. Um,
Well, now you can have AI. There'll be like some AI bot who will say that they're a trainer and like send you stuff. And
Maybe they'll
so
be better than us. I don't know,
I don't know. I don't know. But
but
anyway,
I would ask someone who knows, which may be a friend, maybe a relative, but would absolutely be an orthopedist or a physical therapist or someone like that, who they know, who knows someone that's your age with your physical challenges, that will not hurt you, and then go from there.
yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot, and like I said, and like you said, there's a lot of like 25-year-old guys who might mean well, but they may just give you a scaled down version of what they'd give themselves, which is not really what you need. And so, I always tell people like you want to find out like how empathetic they are to where you're at. Like if you mention you get your period and if they cringe, just turn around and walk out the door. Like if they can't even handle that discussion, just turn around and walk out because it's only gonna get more real.
That's right.
So
I
that's kind of like my like
litmus test. And
yeah,
also, like, how old are they? And
yeah,
it doesn't matter, but, how
right,
old are they? Just gives you some perspective. How old? What's their client demographic? How many people do they work with that have osteoporosis or osteopenia? Can you speak with some of their clients? Well, you can do that. You can ask for references and make sure that your trainer gives you a real assessment. That's another litmus test, Jill. You shouldn't just handshake and have a conversation. They should look at you, have you go through a bunch of movement patterns, see what's going on from a movement and muscle and joint perspective and flexibility perspective, and do a thorough assessment, know your health history before proceeding.
right. And then if they prescribe to you a bunch of supplements to go with it straight out of the gate, that should also be a thing to run away from. Like huge red flag. That happened to me, and I was like, this happened to me like when I first started working out. Um, After I was living a very unhealthy life, that happened to me, and I basically after, like, 24 hours, I'm like, "This feels weird," and I went back, and I'm like, "This isn't cool," and I got all my money back. Somehow they gave me all my money back, but I was like I just felt, like, overwhelmed.
I'm sure there are really well-meaning trainers out there selling stuff. I refuse to. I've been approached
Yeah, I'm sure you've been approached so much.
47,000 times. I won't do it. I will be happy to answer a question if somebody has one about a supplement, but my default answer is talk to your doctor.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
supplements, they
Well,
are
there
the
was just
wild, wild
literally
west.
something
They're
literally
the
in the
wild.
news. There was literally in the news this past week about turmeric, right? Stacey Sims is a big proponent of turmeric.
Yeah.
But there's
Yes.
a and there's a lot of people who are like I'm like, "Hey, I like turmeric as a seasoning on my food, but not to take, like, full on
Supplements.
supplement." But
They're not regulated,
yeah.
and you just don't know what's going to clash with issues that you already have, medications that you're already taking. Yeah. That's a red flag to me.
So, let's go with this question. This is the second most popular topic, and again, another holy war question here. Weighted vests, rucking, all of the things. Some people swear by it in terms of building muscle. Some people say the science doesn't back it up and it's a fad. What's your take on it? I have a take, but I wanna hear your
Oh,
take.
and I want to hear your take too.
Alright, you'll get my take after you share your
Like,
take.
I do have a rucksack, as you know. I got one because honestly, because I was inspired by The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. Great
Yep.
book if you haven't read it. Um, and I have a lot of respect for the military and their training, and it's very uncomfortable. So I'll say that. I've been rucking for 3 years. It has not gotten any easier. I weigh like 110 pounds. My rucksack, my weight is 20 pounds. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not very proud of that. It's still extremely hard for me.
Well, you live in Nashville, so if you're rucking this time of year,
That's
I've
I wish thank you for giving me an out. It doesn't even matter what the weather is. I find it so painful. I don't know if it's just anyway, my anatomy, whatever. As far as but I still do it because it's hard. So, I'm not doing it because I think it's building bone and muscle. My answer to that is maybe. I'm doing it because I think it's important to do hard, uncomfortable things. Not torture yourself, not like pull your hair out of your head, but I can withstand 30 to 45 minutes of rucking. So I do it because it's it's uncomfortable for me. That's why. It's like a brain training. It's a human training. Does it build muscle and bone? I think more so than walking without weight. Sure. Will it continue to do that? No, because there's no progressive overload. We just talked about that. So if you don't continue to increase the weight on your back, I haven't, I've adapted. So the answer is no. But can it supplement your training? Can it increase fat burning because you're burning more calories? Will it give you a bump if you've never rucked before? Sure. To a point. So that's maybe the hill that I'm gonna die on until further research comes out, but I can't see how it can continually build bone and muscle unless you're continuing to increase the weight in
Yeah,
your weight vest, in your
and even
rucksack.
he doesn't advocate, like, continuing to, like, increase the weight to a point, 'cause if you the weight, like, pushes you over,
Right.
like, then you're gonna have back and neck problems.
But could it be a compliment to your walk? Could it zhuzh up what you're currently doing? Yes. Will it have some bone and muscle benefits? I'm sure. Will it continue to, expedite your I don't think so.
Yeah, so I have, a 10-pound plate,
Okay.
and the reason why I have it is because we do a lot of hiking, and so and we're training for a big hike, and, you may see it on Instagram as Operation Magilla Gorilla, because we are going to Africa, and we're gonna climb Kilimanjaro and do a bunch of other things,
Awesome.
and so we're gonna see the gorillas in Rwanda and everything else, but the thing is that I'm using it specifically because we live in a hilly area, and when I wanna go for, like, a half hour, 45-minute walk, I will put the plate in, like, a special backpack, and I will do hill repeats walking
Yeah.
in my neighborhood in this loop because I'm trying to prep for this trip. So it's a very specific thing that I'm trying to do.
Sure.
I agree with you that, like, I think you will burn more calories because you are carrying more weight. I
Sure.
don't think the science is there that it's gonna help with, like, building muscle or bone. I don't think it's gonna hurt you, but assuming you're using a backpack that is properly fitted for you, like, you can't just put it in you can't put, like, a weight in, like, a backpack and, like, expect that to work, but I'm of the mindset that, like, there's some benefit, but you gotta be careful, and I don't think that the science is there to show that it helps with osteoporosis.
I agree with you. And I will also just give you an example. So I have a client now who's in her 70s who swam and hiked and biked for decades and got early onset osteoporosis. And she said, I was so shocked. I was so fit, but there was no impact other than the hiking. She didn't have enough resistance to
Right,
her bone and muscle to cultivate stronger bones and muscles over time. So even though she was very healthy, very active in some ways, it wasn't enough impact to her bone and muscle to continuously keep building against the aging process.
right. Alright, so I got one more question before we start talking. I wanna get into, obviously, we wanna talk a little bit about parenting, but there's one question that came in that I thought, was interesting. Is there any way to build your glutes without making your quads huge? And I have a feeling it's because, like, you can't find a pair of jeans that fit.
So, yes, if someone is blessed with the ability to build nice shaped quads, but they're not happy with them anymore. Yeah, I would do exercises like that are glute specific and isolating, like hip thrusts, various bridges. You can weight your bridge. You can elevate your feet and weight your bridge. Hip thrust, like I mentioned, you can use a cable and do glute kickbacks and glute um, abductions. You can use the abduction machine at the gym. There are floor exercises that you can do for glute med. So there's not a ton, but there are absolutely glute specific only exercises, or pretty much exclusively glutes that you can do. And I would stay away from things for a little while or do less squats, deadlifts. Oh, another good one
Wait,
would be like
you wouldn't do squats if, you were trying to build your glutes but not build your quads?
and I think squats are great, but they are
Right,
gonna
no, I
build
know
your
you think they're
quads.
great, but
They are.
this is interesting.
45-degree hyper, one of my favorite exercises at the gym, and you can do it in a way that's very glute centric. It'll get your hamstrings too, but it's basically like a supported Romanian deadlift, and
Okay,
that you can, take the quads totally out of the picture and just do glutes. So yeah, squats, deadlifts are great, but they are going to hit your quads,
okay,
and lunges as well.
alright, alright. So, do lunges or don't do lunges?
So it's I what I would say to be like, I would just say, do less squats, do less lunges, do less
Okay.
deadlifts, because I wouldn't ever want somebody to take them out of their program completely.
Right.
I would say, take those out, put more glute centric exercises in, and complement with those exercises just so you don't lose those mechanics because they're
Got
such
it.
good exercises.
All right. So before we get into like how people can contact and what you offer, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is that you and Evan have a daughter
Hmm.
who is a very high level high school athlete.
She is.
And I'm curious about how you go about parenting um, a young girl in this environment where there's so much bad shit out there. And her teammates are seeing all this stuff on social and everything else. And how do you deal with parenting a teenager, while promoting like healthy body image and everything else and fitness? How do you triangulate all that?
Mm. Some of it may be luck. And I always say that because I only have one. If I had 5 kids and they all turned out the way she did, I would say maybe I could take some credit for that. I'm not sure. I think I didn't mention this, but growing up, my mom was obese. And that's one thing. But what's more important than that fact is she had so much shame around her body. It was so clear to me, to everyone around her. People did not help her with that. It was a very big, for whatever reason, topic of conversation in my family and my extended family. And I grew up thinking, oh my gosh, like through osmosis, I picked this up. And I have to unravel this, especially for myself, also in the work that I do, with others, for myself, and with my daughter. I don't want to pass this generational, you know, model of,
Right.
and mindset. So I tried really hard from when she was little to talk about food in a way that wasn't polarizing and talk about body in a way that wasn't polarizing. For example, I never used the words treat, cheat, or junk when talking about food. We just said growing food and then other food. So we would just like, did you have enough growing food today? Okay, well, good. So, okay, perfect. So then have that. Oh, you want that? Make sure you're also going to have enough growing food. So it wasn't like a good, bad. It was just like very matter of fact. And that worked for her. She has like zero issues around eating quantities, this, that, where there's no good, bad. It's just, this is the food that's going to make me strong and smart. And this is the other stuff. That I think fed into body image because I think for a lot of people, it starts with food. And I could be wrong, but I do. And with body, we just spent a lot of time talking about being strong. And that was it. It was just like, we want to be strong in mind, in body, so that we can do things that we want to do now and hopefully for the long haul. And I think having that mindset just continued. So we would make muscles and a lot of pictures. And we started getting her moving and exercising and even like doing body weight work from when she was young. So she was very into what her body could do and very fascinated by, look, I can now do this and now I can do that. And I think that translated into sports. The last thing I would just say is I think you could argue with me, but I do think getting especially a girl involved in sports, in team sports, if possible, not to knock non-team sports, because I think all sports are great and I don't want anyone to get upset about that. But I think there's something about team sports that can be really protective around those issues because kids are trying to do well, perform well, um, and ascend in their skill level, and that takes training and eating and and continuing to know what good training and good eating look like.
Yeah, and commitment, right? Like commitment to the team, commitment to wanting to be your best because you have other people depending on you.
Yes. And I tell her the same thing I told you earlier. This is the time that you're laying down the foundation for your house, metaphorical,
Right.
if you are dieting now, if you're over exercising, which I know happens to a lot of teen girls. I
Yeah.
mean, I had definitely thoughts of should I be doing this? Should I not? Because my mom and was
Yeah.
acting right. That's how you cut into all of your bone and muscle, which you then see at age 30, 40, and 50 when there's early onset osteoporosis. It happened before.
Right. Right. Okay. That's helpful. And I mean, I think that it's important. Yeah. So, Loretta plays volleyball, and there's this video of her where we're gonna have to include it in the show notes, where she basically like saved the ball, like while she was like out almost. She knocked over a lady somehow. She made sure the lady was okay and then got back in the match while the point was still going on. And she actually was taking care of the lady before everybody else on the sidelines was taking care of the lady, if I remember correctly. It's such a funny video. I mean, I'm assuming the woman was fine.
She was. So thankfully, this was one of her teammates' grandmothers who was very into volleyball and was really like, you can do that anytime. So you're right. The ball was going out. She got it. And, or maybe it wasn't, would have, anyway, she
She
saved the
saved it
ball.
somehow.
She happened to leap over this lady. And then went back after the point actually to make sure she was okay, but she was totally okay. Not, totally fine, and was like, "I'm so proud of you," and was very supportive, thank goodness. Loretta is a really kind person. She would never, like, harm someone on purpose, but that's part of the sport. It's any sport. If you're in the front, hockey game,
Yeah.
baseball,
Yeah.
anything, you can get hit.
Yeah.
It's sort of one of the risks that you take. But thankfully, everything was okay. And yes, she got like 1,000,000 likes on that post, and I think she's almost at 10,000,000 views, which is insane.
Insane.
Like,
I
I'm
mean, but
lucky to
the
get 20 people to care about anything I say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me about it. All right, Deb, this has been a great conversation. Tell us about um your coaching and how
Okay.
people can get in touch with you.
All right. But Jill, I have to just say one more thing, which is we didn't really talk about why people need to care about their muscle.
Oh, I
And I
thought we
just want
covered
to
that,
add
but if you want to like sit there and put that message in, let's put that message in
right now.
right now.
Okay. I really have to say that muscle is maybe one of, if not the most important parts of your body to care about forever, but especially as you age. It is protective against all cause mortality, disease, disability, and early death. And the reason why is muscle is an endocrine organ and it is sending signals to every single organ, bone, muscle in the body, your brain, your heart, your liver, your pancreas, everywhere. So it is protective. And because we're in the loss game now, if we are at a deficit for muscle mass, if we are starting to get like sarcopenic, if we have more body fat than we have muscle, we're over 30%. If we're a woman and we have over 30%, if our body comp is over 30%, we're going to be in a state of chronic inflammation because fat is also an endocrine organ and can be pro inflammatory. So we need to protect our muscle mass at all costs. So that is why strength training is so important because it's protective against basically almost every type of disease, including cancer. And that is what we didn't always know until really I would say the last 25 years.
Well, I think that also like and this is one thing I'll give Stacy Sims credit
Yeah.
for is that she was the one who first put in my head that like most of the studies that are done on fitness are done on 20 to 30-year-old guys.
Yes.
And so that all the stuff where they're like giving this guidance for women,
Yes.
it's not based on studies that have been done on women. Like she was the first person in her initial book I think it was Roar, where she laid that out, and I was like, "Fuck." Like, yeah, now every time I see someone citing some study, I'm like, "Did they test women? How old were the women? Like, was it peer reviewed?"
It's so true, and I just feel like the talk is all about HRT, which is great,
Yeah.
but I feel like muscle should be right up there because not everyone can take HRT, but
Yeah.
we can all build muscle.
Yeah.
And that is such a huge partner in longevity. And now that I've been in training for 23 years and my clients are in their 80s and they're
Yeah.
still playing their sports, they don't have walkers, they don't have canes. It's really neat to see. Like, it really does matter and it
Yeah.
really works. Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So, tell us about your offer. Tell us about how people can get in touch with you and follow you.
You can find me on Instagram for sure. That's where I'm most active. My Instagram handle, you'll put in the show notes or handles
Yep.
or
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes,
That's where
and
I'm
when this
most
gets
active.
released, your Instagram handle will actually appear on this video.
That's the best place to find me. I also have a website, which we'll attach. It's just my name, debraduby.com. Um, if you connect with me via Instagram or through my website, I will get it. I offer many different programs, but I think what's coming up that anyone can do or what's happening that anyone can do, I do have a strength training library called strengthlab.tv. You can go there now and you can become a member immediately. And there's 300 different exercises, me teaching you regressions, progressions, there's notes, so there's written notes on how to do everything. There are workouts there. That's a great place if you're excited about starting to train or you're an intermediate lifter and you just want new ideas. It's cheap. You can join per month. You can join for the year. That's a great place where you can get started now. A program that you can join if you're really like, gosh, I really want to learn soup to nuts everything about nutrition, about training, and really getting my habits down around my health. My next program launches this September. And again, if you're following me online, all that information will be presented, by next month where you can join. And that program's called Refresh. And that is a 4-month online program with a lot of Zoom events like this. And it is everything you might need or want to know to transform your health.
All right. So, one clarification I'll say is that this episode will be released in August. So, assuming this is released in August and that's when people are going to hear it, what would be the timing for people to sign up? Will it be, do you like open it up like August 1st or when is that?
That's a good question. Probably will have signups last week of August or first week of September. And I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics, but it'll be sometime the last week of August, first week of September.
To sign up for the September cohort.
Hmm.
Okay. Got it.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So, just wanted to make that clear so people don't get confused when they're hearing this versus the actual
Totally.
timing of the next cohort starting. All right. Um, Deb, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'm really appreciative of your time, your expertise, sharing your stories as a tech recruiter and obviously strength trainer and as a wife and a mom. And I appreciate you sharing that story about kind of like with your mom and how that influenced you today. I think that's really powerful for a lot of the listeners. This is Going the Distance with Go Long. I am Jill Consor Beck, founder of Go Long. Go Long is an accountability by texting service. We send customized texts for you so that you can make whatever changes you want to make. And it could be about your physical health, mental health, physical health, legal health, whatever it is, your career. We do it all. So it's just one text a day. And this show was produced by JR Media Services. I am really thankful for John and his help because he makes this a lot easier for me and he makes it a lot easier for my guests. So, with that, thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. Have a great day.